Hi, my name's Natasha, and today we're going to learn how to do the sentence completion task in IELTS reading by using the E2 method. Let's get started. Here it is. This task is fairly straightforward. You must complete the sentences with words or numbers directly from the text that you'll be reading. To get a high score in this task, it's important to use the E2 method to help guide you to the correct answers. For those of you doing IELTS Academic, sentence completion will appear in section 1 of the reading test, but if you're doing IELTS General, sentence completion will appear in section 3 of the reading test. Here's our E2 method for sentence completion. In step 1, you need to check the instructions. This is important because on this task, like many other IELTS reading tasks, the instructions can vary. For example, you may be asked to choose one word from the text, choose two words from the text, or choose two words and/or a number. The instructions tell you exactly what you're allowed to take from the text to complete the sentences, so it's crucial that you check them carefully. In step 2, you'll read the sentences and highlight keywords. Those keywords will help us when we're searching through the text to locate our answers. In step 3, you need to scan the text for the relevant section. This means you need to look for the correct part of the text that corresponds to or refers to the sentences that you're completing. Step 4 is read carefully. Once you've found the relevant section of the text, you need to read it carefully for meaning to lead you to step 5, which is to choose your answer. By the way, at E2, we have methods that will help you master every IELTS task. To get access, sign up for free at e2language.com. Here's our sentence completion task. It's titled Urban Farming in Paris. Let's apply the method together now. Do you remember the first step in our E2 method? That's right, check instructions. Remember to read them carefully because they give you valuable information about how many words or numbers you can use, where to take them from, and where to put your answers. The instructions tell us, questions 1 to 3, complete the sentences below. Write no more than 2 words and/or a number from the text in each gap. This means that you could possibly write 1 word and a number, 2 words and a number, 1 word only, 2 words only, or a number only. These must come from the text, and once we've selected our answer, it needs to go in the gap. Like previously mentioned, the instructions are important to pay close attention to because they tell us a lot of information about our answers. In this task, our answers must come from the text, so we cannot change the word form. The words must be written exactly as they are in the text. In step 2, we need to read the sentences and highlight keywords. What could the keywords be? First, let's read the sentences. Number 1 says, vertical tubes are used to grow strawberries, blank, and herbs. The comma after strawberries and the word and after the blank tells us that there's a list of things being grown with vertical tubes. I think the keywords could be vertical tubes, strawberries, and herbs. Sentence 2 says, there will eventually be a daily harvest of as much as blank in weight of fruit and vegetables. The phrase in weight is definitely a great clue for the answer later. I think the important words to look out for are daily harvest, weight, and fruit and vegetables. Number 3 says, it may be possible that the farm's produce will account for as much as 10% of the city's blank overall. Here, let's highlight may be possible, farm's produce, account for, 10%, and cities. I believe these will lead us to the correct answer. Here are the sentences with the keywords highlighted. Our next step is to scan the text for the relevant section. Here's a top tip. To look for the correct part of the text, you need to use synonyms or paraphrase versions of those keywords that you highlighted. The words in the text won't always be exactly the same as they are in the sentences. Here's the text that we'll be looking at. The main text that you'll be scanning in the sentence completion task will generally be made up of multiple paragraphs. If you're doing the IELTS academic, this will be a multi-paragraph essay on a specific topic, but it won't be overly specialized. As you can see, this text is titled Urban Farming, and it spans across many paragraphs. Scan it now using our keywords from before and see if you can figure out the part that corresponds to our sentence completion task. So, did you find the correct section of the text? Remember to always scan for those keywords that you highlighted in step 2, and more importantly, look for their synonyms or paraphrase versions. You'll need this strategy again in the next step. Here's the correct part of the text, the first 2 paragraphs. Now we're ready to tackle step 4 of our method. Slow down and read carefully. It's important to note that answers will come in the order of how they appear in the text. Let's focus on the first paragraph to figure out the first sentence answer. Read this paragraph carefully to locate those keywords from sentence 1. Can you spot them? You might have noticed that strawberries and tubes are mentioned a couple of times, as well as the word herbs. We know we're in the right place. In this case, we can see that the same words that are in the sentences are also used in the text. Here's the sentence that will lead us to the correct answer. Which word from the text fits in the gap? If you chose lettuces, you're correct. We know they are grown from vertical tubes because of the phrase, "From identical vertical tubes nearby burst row upon row of lettuces," which paraphrases the original sentence. Possible distractors could have been basil, sage, or peppermint. We know these are incorrect because they're specific herbs as shown by the phrase "such as." Great job! You're ready for the next question. Remember that when you read carefully, you need to read for meaning so that you choose the correct answers instead of any distractors. Here's the next sentence we need to do where we'll repeat steps 4 and 5, read carefully, and choose an answer. The sentence says, "There will eventually be a daily harvest of as much as blank in weight of fruit and vegetables." We can use the keywords daily harvest, weight, and fruit and vegetables and their synonyms to find the correct answers. Because the questions follow text order, we can use the next part of the text that is relevant to our task. Don't forget to look for synonyms or paraphrase versions of those keywords to help you narrow down the sentence that contains the correct answer. We can see the word harvest is repeated, as well as the phrase fruit and vegetables, and the term daily is paraphrased as every day in the text. We can focus our attention to that particular part of the text now. To locate our answer, let's read for meaning. When the remaining 2/3 of the vast open area are in production, 20 staff will harvest up to 1,000 kilograms of perhaps 35 different varieties of fruit and vegetables every day. The phrase, "when the remaining 2/3 of the vast area are in production, 20 staff will harvest up to," has been simplified in the sentence completion task as, "there will eventually be a daily harvest of as much as." We also know that the blank before "in weight" signals that we need a numbered weight in a particular set of units, so 1,000 kilograms seems like the correct answer here. Notice now that I write my answer exactly how it appears in the text, the number 1,000 and kg, the short form of kilograms. This is an acceptable answer because it follows the instructions, which allows me to write up to 2 words and a number. If you weren't reading for meaning, you might have been tempted by the phrase 35 varieties or even 20 staff, but we know those simply don't work because they don't describe the weight of the produce. How did you go? Are you getting the hang of using those keywords and their synonyms to read carefully? We've got one more question to go. The final sentence reads, "It may be possible that the farm's produce will account for as much as 10% of the city's blank overall." The keywords may be possible, farm's produce, account for, 10%, and cities should help you. Here's the next part of the text. Can you spot any of those keywords? We can see that the word city is repeated as well as the number 10%. The phrase eventually target is the paraphrase version of account for, and maybe relates to the original phrase of maybe possible. The numbered percentage 10% is an important clue as it comes before the blank. 10% of the city's blank overall. Consumption is the final answer in our sentence completion task. Well done. And that's it. We just successfully did a sentence completion task for IELTS reading using the E2 method and strategies. If you're wanting more IELTS reading practice, step-by-step lessons, live classes, assessments, personalized feedback, and more, head to 𝐸2language.com and get started on your IELTS test prep for free today. And don't forget to practice looking for those synonyms and paraphrase versions of keywords. That's a skill that will come in handy for lots of IELTS tasks. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.